Welcome to Sustainable Sessions, hosted by yours truly, Lucas and Lauren. Episode 12, featuring Carissa and Coffee.
My name's Carissa. I'm 26 and I live on the island of Oahu in the state of Hawaii. I'm originally from Arizona and I've been living here for a handful of years, and I like talking about sustainability.
Awesome.
Great. So obviously you are involved in quite a few things. Can you tell us a little bit why you chose to focus on sustainability and why that's become like a focus of your niche, at least on your TikTok and Instagram channels, and
Yeah.
like why you're so interested and passionate about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I got into like the later years of college and started learning about, I was studying like marine science, but towards the end of the years, they started focusing on all the conservation issues that are in the ocean. And it became really clear that all of that's kind of stemmed to human behavior. And then I discovered Lauren Singer, Trashes for Tossers, when I was a senior in college. And I saw that she was living a zero waste lifestyle, and I kind of started her blog and learning all about it. And it was just so much more empowering to know that you could make like an individual, um, you could take a step towards a solution as an individual, even though in class I'm learning about these like huge problems that seem like so hard to solve. It was more, I guess, attractive to break down the problem to be like an actual tangible actionable step that we could take. So I think that's why I became so passionate about it. And then when I moved here, everyone here is really environmentally minded, and that's not how it was where I came from. And it felt like I was like in a community that also cared, and it made it a lot easier.
How was the moving process? And like, it must have been just such a culture shock in sort of sense, kind of moving from Arizona to Hawaii. So maybe you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I moved out here to start my master's degree. For graduate school. So I had like some structure. There was like a deadline that I had to be out here for, but I had never visited. Like I had never vacationed here. I had never done any of that. And I live on Oahu, which is the most like city-like island. So we have the most people here, maybe about 1 million. And so everyone said like, oh, you're gonna get island fever, there's not enough people, but it hasn't happened, and it's been years, so I don't think it will.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and just to kind of build on that too, obviously you have a big interest in endangered species, and not to kind of shift too much back and forth, but can you talk a little bit about that and kind of like what that experience has been like, whether it was with your time spent in Arizona or Hawaii, and like kind of where has your thought process evolved like on endangered species and
Yeah, so and don't
right
worry
now?
about going back and forth. I hope one day I can like coincide all of it, like with social media platforms and with my day job. But I joined a club because I wanted extracurriculars, and it was a marine conservation club in undergraduate, and they were working with an endangered species called the vaquita, which at the time had about 200 individuals left in its population, and right now it's about less than 30. So that was a long time ago, and that was like really that's an example of a species that's really on the brink of extinction. And I really felt like it was sad, but it was also really easy to talk to people about it. And I really, since then, I didn't even plan on staying with endangered species. It's just kind of what my original experience was, and then there was always another species where I went. And so right now, I'm working with an organization that works with a handful of marine life, but we mainly focus on the endangered Hawaiian monk seal, and it only exists in Hawaii, and there's about 1,400 left. So not as small as the vaquita's population, but yeah. And then I also have my favorite marine animals in orca, and I have a huge passion for the endangered southern resident killer whales up off the Pacific Northwest coasts. So I think that it kind of happened by accident, but I really like it, so I don't think I'll leave.
Wow. And maybe if you want to speak a little bit more, like what's kind of your role in the organization, and like maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we're pretty small. We're a small nonprofit. So I think we only have about 7 or 8 staff members at a time. And so I was hired to just kind of support in the field, which would be like response, field response in the context of endangered species in Hawaii is kind of like, you go, you try to ID the animal, because with small populations, there's a identification method usually, and then talk to people about it, kind of get them inspired, teach them how to do some stewardship actions. But my role has really changed over the years because I've been with them a little bit, and I try to get us funding. I do our social media, website stuff, video editing, but then I also, and I guess I didn't mention this, but when I started with that club back in undergrad, I was focused on conservation education. And so I was taken on originally to handle conservation education for the organization, because that's kind of what all my experience is in. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do on social media too, is use like all these different mediums to teach people of all different backgrounds, all different ages, kind of about the ocean. So right now I do with preschool all the way to college, and I guess not right now because of COVID, but we're trying to use some virtual tools at our disposal to get people excited.
That's awesome.
So I think that when you're in a small nonprofit, you kind of do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, no, that's really great to hear. And it sounds like, again, you're so passionate about it, and you're so involved, and like it's really amplified as time's gone on. You spent more time with the organization. I think that's like honestly a great segue to kind of ask you some questions about social media. So obviously, like the influencer on TikTok and Instagram, what's that experience been like for you to join the TikTok platform? Like, kind of how did you get involved in it? And what has it been like with respect to putting out content just for that? And like, I know like we talk about it with some other people we've had in our podcast, but like TikTok is definitely geared towards the Gen Z and upcoming generation. And obviously you're saying that you work with, preschool up to grade 12.
Yeah.
Find that obviously you've had some great traction. What has that experience been like with you using TikTok to talk about these topics?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. So when I first graduated graduate school, before I got this job with the conservation organization, I taught 7th, 8th, and 9th graders at a like kind of a homeschool academy, and they were on TikTok, and they were always talking about it, and I was like, what is this new app? I was just trying to relate to them, and they kind of taught me about the app. They're like, you should get on this, and I never did. I never listened to them, but I should have, because I think that was right when it first got a lot of traction in the US. And then I actually started playing on it just a few months ago when we were all in quarantine here. And I think that just like one video went viral, and I think I got like 40,000 followers overnight. It was the craziest thing that had ever happened. I remember my boyfriend was like, this, I don't know what's happening. But and since then it's only been, I think, about a few, like 5 or 6 weeks, and I was like, okay, I guess with this following now I can just start talking about the ocean. And so it's kind of been really a whirlwind. And I also like super used to Instagram, and so I'm still adjusting and figuring it out. I mean, I've worked with brands and companies on Instagram and stuff too, but even with TikTok, it's just a little bit different. And so I think right now I'm trying to focus on wrapping my head around it and like what it means and what exactly I want to do with it. Like I think I know what I want to do with it, but I also really value the creative freedom that it brings, like outside of Instagram. And like I really love that you can watch videos of any of your interests, because the algorithm's so sensitive that I could be watching a video on politics and then a video on financial advisement and then sustainability. And so it's kind of been a little bit mind-blowing of a journey, I would say, because it just happened.
No, that's so awesome. And I definitely feel that as well too. Like there's always like new things to learn. And I feel like how creators are showing and teaching content is just becoming a lot more creative. And I guess kind of to chat a little bit too about other eco-creators. Have you met any other kind of eco-creators, and what's been kind of being in that community been like for you?
Yeah, it's also really funny. So I found EcoTalk. Are you guys familiar with that handle? It's I think it's a collaboration of eco influencers on TikTok that are sharing videos. So like the day after I went viral, I messaged them and I was like, hi, I would love to submit some videos. And I got put in this awesome group message of all of the sustainability and environmentally minded creators on TikTok. And it's amazing. I have so many notifications all the time, but I love like going through them, and people, it's nice to feel like you're not alone with all of the messaging that you're trying to share. And there's, it's so inspiring how much momentum there is on TikTok for sustainability, like so much more than I've ever experienced anywhere else, like in classrooms, in communities, on Instagram, on YouTube. It's skyrocketed on TikTok. So there's just a lot of potential, but I think I'm forming friendships with all of them, and I'm starting to, I hope that we can like work together in the future too.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
It's such a crazy experience, and like even like us too, like we started getting on TikTok, same kind of thing, like right when quarantine was picking up. And then it's just like you said, the algorithm is just so sensitive. If you just watch some content, like your feed just gets killed with a lot of that. And it's like, again, so if you really like some of these topics, you're just going to get bombarded with so much great content. And I think what I really like about it too is that like the content itself is so like organic and real, like compared to Instagram. Like people will spend more time like, oh, is this the perfect edit for this picture or whatever that's going out, whereas TikTok, it's like that almost is like too much, and you won't get success if you like overdo it. Like it needs to be like a very true, real type of content. When you're teaching kids, and even when you're learning for yourself on the topics, whether it's endangered species or sustainable living, where do you tend to source a lot of your information from? Like, do you have any like types of books or articles or sources you like to read? Is there any like particular accounts that you like to focus on, and kind of what do you recommend for any of the listeners that are trying to learn more about any of these topics, and how they can kind of source this information?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think resources are so important. So when I'm teaching kids and like in my day job and even on Instagram, like I've just had this information for so long that I feel like I fall back on the same messages. Whereas with TikTok, because so many people are so passionate about it on there, I'm learning new things like every single day, which is crazy because it's actually becoming one of the resources for me. But I would say that because I have a scientific background, I really do try to source all of my information like in primary publications, which is super dense, and I wouldn't suggest people trying to sift through it. But there are like legitimate sources. I feel like I have a handful of like sustainability influencers or people on my social media space that I try to keep up with, because I care about like their thoughts and opinions. But as far as like actual climate facts and scientific facts, I would say either a primary source or even a secondary source summarizing that. So like, for example, there was some statistics coming out that are published in the IPCC. So that's telling us like, oh, are we going to get like 2 degrees warming by the end of the century? Like that would be like the primary source for something like that. It takes a lot of time to do that, which is why I think social media is such a good tool, because people can summarize it in like a shareable graphic or things like that. But then you have the element of like, is it sourced correctly? So I would say for fun, I like to read like blogs from like Trashes for Tossers or companies that also have blogs. Or I have, and then on my day-to-day, I have like, I follow accounts that share climate facts. And then if I see something super interesting, I'm going to follow up on that and see what the source is and look it up when I have the time, you know? So there's a lot of different avenues you could take, but for people looking for it, I would say like, I try to be really intentional with like the content that I consume. And so if you want to like learn more about the environment, then make sure that that's the content that you're taking in, because it can really, I think, it can change your mood and your like mental state if you're consuming negative content or positive content. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I actually have a few questions too, because your background is in a lot of like the sciences and stuff. Were there any like really cool kind of courses that you took? And if there was, like, was there one kind of like takeaway that like really inspired you or really kind of like helped motivating you to like pursue this sort of type of education?
Yeah, so that's a good question too, because when you major in a scientific for undergrad, you have to go through all of these weed out courses that can be really challenging, and it was so hard for me to like see the light at the end of the tunnel. So if anyone's listening that is in that state, just know that when you get to your upper division courses, it's so much more rewarding, and I learned like so much more in that. I would say that my most memorable course was I got to study abroad, which was awesome, for a marine biology course in the Galapagos, which was incredible. I also took a lot of marine conservation courses like at the college that were just small, and like I was going from like a 300-person lecture to 15 people all discussing solutions for sustainable seafood. So my takeaway for that would be to don't get bogged down by like the chemistry prerequisites that you have to take, and just kind of know that that the things that you're passionate about that you want to study, you're going to be able to take courses in that, and those are going to be amazing.
Just another quick follow-up question, because we're actually Ecuadorian, so my mom's from
I'm Ecuadorian. My family lives in Quito.
My mom's from Quito as well. We have some family.
Have you been?
There. I went when I was younger, like in grade 3, and my brother went when he was a baby. But I actually just had 2 friends that traveled to the Galapagos, and they were telling me that it's like closing down for tourism just because like so much stuff is getting like polluted and stuff. So I was just curious to hear more about like your relation to Ecuador, like how it was studying abroad, and like it just hits home for us as well.
Yeah, that's
small world.
Yeah, my dad's whole family lives here, but they were all born, or most of them were born in Ecuador, and their extended family lives there. So we went back like a handful of times growing up. But when I went, which was 2015, I think, it was the economy is very based in tourism, and so it makes sense that it would close down, because like that's what's happening here in Hawaii. So I think that I did see that there was like some heavy offshore fishing pressure that was going on in the Galapagos that might have contributed to it, but I'm not sure. But that whole economy is really funded by people visiting, and if they can't visit, it would make sense why they would close down. I want to go again with my partner, like now that I'm a little bit older, and we haven't been back since, but I would really suggest anyone going there. It's like pristine. It was like my first time being in like the closest thing to a pristine habitat that I'd ever been in, and yeah, it was incredible.
No, and I heard they have like really cool kind of like sustainability things even for tourism. Like there's no plastic cutlery or anything. Like you have to be really good with like putting stuff away, and then they're trying to also conserve like a lot of like species and animals that are going extinct in that area. So it was interesting to hear like some of my friends share their experiences, but then also for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that because their economy is so, and this is like a rationale that we use here too, like because their economy is so supported by tourism, people are coming to see those animals. And so there's a lot of support for conservation measures of like the Galapagos tortoise or the sea lions, because they want to preserve them so that they can also preserve their economic livelihoods. So when people, I think, start tying in like the natural landscape with economics is when I think we're going to see a lot bigger change for environmental initiatives and things like that.
Awesome.
I can't believe we're all Ecuadorian.
What would you kind of recommend to younger people that are watching this right now, or maybe even older ones too, like how they can get involved and what some steps they can take? Maybe it's not necessarily starting a business, but just kind of some organizations that they might want to look at and consider if it's for volunteering purposes or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are so many different things that you can do to be involved in helping the environment and the planet that you don't have to be a scientist. And I think that I thought that there was only a couple routes, but as things have opened up, there are so many different things you can do. And so my advice that I wish I had been told was that you can start as early as you want. I have friends who, started volunteering at aquariums when they were in middle school. You can start as early as you want. And also you want to try everything, because like people will often say like, oh, well, I want to study environmental science or marine science, but there are so many different niches in every in that field that you don't really know what you like until you try it out. And so I did like an internship at a zoo, and then I did an internship at like a planetarium, and I know I took some stuff away from each one, and I'm grateful for all the experiences, but like each one taught me like what I wanted to end up doing. And I had found out that I like talking to people and I like talking to kids. And so try everything, start early. And then if you do know where you want to end up, like keep your eyes on the prize for that, because their opportunities will start popping up and you have to take them, because it can be a competitive field. And so I also think that even if you want to start a clothing line or something, you can still help the ocean. It doesn't have to be what this box that I think we used to think environmental conservation used to be in. Like everybody can help, and it doesn't matter if what you end up doing for your day job isn't saving animals. You can still help the ocean with your business practices, with what you guys are doing right now with the podcast. Like everybody can do something. So just know that there's a lot of options out there, and you want to do what makes you happy, right? So that it doesn't feel like work. And so I would say follow that too.
That's awesome. Maybe can you like share one of your experiences of like volunteering at, I guess you said the zoo or like an aquarium, maybe like share either a story like or experience or like what you took away from that whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, like from one of my internships or volunteer positions.
Yeah.
Okay. When I first moved here, I started working at a lab that focuses on when dolphins pass away and what causes that. And I think I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, like I've always wanted to work with these animals. They were already passed away, but I was like, at least this is still helping with science and things like that. And I remember one time we were doing a necropsy, which is where you sample the like kind of the organs of the animal to try to figure out if something's wrong with them. And I found like a piece of plastic, and I was just like, but it wasn't like it was like a lot of it. It was not a negligible amount, not microplastics. And I remember sitting there and I was like, people don't even know that these animals have this like in their stomach, or they do know, but I'm like holding it right now. It's not like this far away thing. And when I was growing up, it seemed like the climate change and all of this was something that my kids or my grandkids were going to have to deal with, but it's not. It's right now. And I remember it was like my first year in graduate school. I had like just moved here. I was still adjusting, and I was like, it helped reinforce that I was doing the right thing for like my journey. And I remember thinking like people need to know exactly how to stop getting this stuff in the ocean so that it stops getting this stuff in these animals, so that we can like have a healthier planet. And connecting all of those dots, I think is really key for people like in the general public and for kids who are growing up. And I would say that was probably one of the best. I mean, it was sad, but it was one of the more like monumental, memorable moments that I had from one of my volunteering positions. And definitely one I still take with me. And I mean, I'm talking about it now, so I haven't forgotten it at all.
Wow. I got chills there for a second.
I know, it's crazy because, and I posted something on my TikTok this week, but it was just like, we're finding like masks in the ocean now. And like, you have to be mindful that there's no away, and that when you throw things away, they can end up other places. And so just kind of sharing that and having people understand, I think is probably one of the best tools we can provide people.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think exactly what you said too. I think a lot of people have this mentality that it is far away, and because, they might be in a more urban community, or whether it's like residential land or anything like that, like they're just so used to like, okay, I'm just going to put my stuff curbside and I never have to worry about it again. And then now, like, I think obviously you have a big passion in endangered species and specifically marine life, but I think it's, for people that are kind of interested in it, having a volunteer experience like that, or just having something more hands-on, you're like, oh my God, like it's not just a video on my phone, like this is like right here in front of me. And it helps them really connect with the problem on a much more deep level. I mean, like I know my sister and I, when we first started this brand, we used to do like trash pickups around like our community. And like, I think we always had this mentality, like we live in a pretty clean place. And like, granted, it definitely is, but like, then we'd stop and like look at some corners, and it's like when you start to like look for stuff, you really realize like, oh my God, like there's garbage literally everywhere. And it just started clicking with us, like even in a community that we think is so clean, like there's problems literally everywhere. And we always try to encourage young people that even if you want to start making an impact, whether it's through volunteering, like start with your home, and whether it's in your own actual home, in your own personal life, and then, you know, it expands to your families and friends and then your local community. But like, there's so much that can be done, and it's crazy when you really start to look for it, how quickly you start noticing stuff.
Yeah, like you doing hands-on work, like I feel like that's really important too, getting hands-on experience, because then you walk away from that task or whatever you were doing feeling like, okay, I just helped. And that can help be inspiring for people when it feels like they don't want to keep going on with conservation and stuff like that. And so, yeah, definitely start at home, start small, just know that every small step is making a difference. You know, I, I, I definitely see that that's important. And also, I mean, I would love to go travel to the places that, you know, don't have the waste management infrastructure that we're so lucky and privileged to have, because I live in a really clean community too. And I sometimes think the same thing, like, oh, I should just go to the beach on the other side of the island to clean today. But knowing where it's actually going is, I think, would be really eye-opening. And so I hope to eventually travel those places and maybe photograph it or something like that.
Well, Lucas and I actually did a plant tour at our management recycling facility, and it was just insane to see the scale at which there's so much trash. I think it's the biggest one in all of North America, and it's pretty close to us in Ontario. But it was just insane to see like all that trash, but then also knowing that there's equipment that's kind of sorting and like moving things out. Like, we know the solutions are there and the technology's there. It's just a matter of us like putting things and sorting it properly, and that all starts with the individual. So that's something that we try to emphasize with our content as well.
Yeah, individual choice is so important. And it's hard because I get a lot of people on TikTok that are like, it's not the individuals, it's really the big corporations, which it's true, but we can all be part of helping, right? And if we focus on that, I think we'll feel like we can go longer with the all of our actions and things like that.
For sure. And like, I just was skimming through some of your content before this too, and like, I know you've really like, since you've started to like where you're at now, like you really are very close to like, let's say the zero waste, like true, like absolute sustainability lifestyle. But it's always like a growth and like how you kind of got there. For people that are kind of just starting out on their sustainable journey, whether they're like small and maybe like they might be in a family or a setting where their friends and coworkers, whatever, don't necessarily think the same way that they do, and it might be hard for them to kind of make those changes and take those first steps. Like, what do you like? What worked for you, and for young people just starting out their personal sustainable journeys?
That's an awesome question. So I would say that don't like be so hard on yourself, because we do live in a system that generates a lot of waste, and we can't always step out of that system. And I was really hard on myself at first. I was really attached to the zero and zero waste, which is not even attainable. And what you want to do, and I say this with people like with their diet too, if it's much better to take a small step that you can maintain for a long time than just to go really hard at the beginning and burn out and then just be like, I can't do any of this. And so if you are trying to cut out plastic, like start with a certain, start with one item, or start with one room in your house, or start with one topic that you want to learn about, because there's so much to learn about, and it can be overwhelming if you don't like take care of yourself in the process. So what worked for me was started with my bathroom, and I would say that I feel really confident about the low waste in my bathroom now, but something I could do better on is I want to get better at making a lot of my own food, so that I'm not purchasing so much packaged food or frozen food. And like, so I'm still getting better. And I think that everybody for their whole life will continue to find one more thing that they're doing, or like, and one thing that really stuck out to me, what I think I heard it over on Instagram, was if you have something that's really important to you, like say it's like art, don't focus on that, right? Don't like cut out all the plastic with art, because that brings you so much joy. And so just focus on the things that are easy, like bringing cutlery with you if you're going to get takeout, or like, for example, like me and my partner, we like to go get takeout from like a food truck. Well, I'm not going to stop getting that. Luckily they have like paper packaging, but I'm just going to try my best with what I can when I go there, because that's like something that's really important to me. So I would start with the things that don't seem like they're such a sacrifice, seem like there's something fun to, and try to keep it, be patient with yourself, and try to start small for the long haul instead of do it all at once.
I think that's a huge point to bring up as well, because I even find just like, even for like birthday parties and stuff, like you're still going to celebrate and you're still going to be doing a lot of these things. It's just kind of transitioning it to make it a little bit more sustainable. Like I even know with like my close family members, for like the little kids' birthday parties, they still bring like plastic cutlery and stuff. And I think as we can try to like make some of those movements and transitions, we'll be on our way. But it's really hard to see that as well too, because now these kids are growing up just thinking like it's fine, just get plastic, throw it out. Like it's changing that mindset. So I think that's something that we're trying to do, like, and hopefully like our generation can kind of instill those habits. But yeah, it's a little bit hard.
Yeah, I think leading by example is probably like, because sometimes you're not in a comfortable enough situation where you want to say something. So in that case, I try to just lead by example. And then but yeah, I mean, if there's an opportunity for education, I also try to take it. It's kind of just what you're comfortable with. And yeah, because it is hard not to think about that. Like, oh no, this kid's growing up thinking this is okay, and we're actually trying to get rid of it right now. But that's why I think that like legislation and laws are also a key component of individual choice and corporation accountability, because like we have a plastic bag ban here. Do you guys have that in Ontario?
It's supposed to start in 2021. So like, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen now with COVID kind of it, but we're supposed to actually have an entire single serve plastic ban from the federal government. I mean,
Hopefully.
I don't know what the implementation is going to look like, but I know like I have like a friend who's actually works at a law firm, and they work with a big pizza chain, and they've had discussions already about how they have to like change up all their supplies that they have bringing in for a lot of the packaging that they use already, and like making all like, I know organizations are already starting to think about a lot of these alternatives. So like, I don't know the exact deadline of when it's going to kind of happen, but I know there's definitely plans for it, and it seems like organizations they have to be proactive. Like if they get a deadline, they have to make those changes. So soon, but I don't think yeah, it hasn't happened just yet.
Yeah, like there's an added cost with that you have to factor in too. So especially here with small businesses. So like whenever bans get implemented, that's kind of the biggest thing is, oh, are we going to put any small businesses out of business? But if you're preparing, and I think that, and if it's mandated, there's definitely more, like, that's why I think it's a key point, is because if you make it a law and that you give them a year to prepare, then there's an expectation with that.
For sure. I guess kind of to wrap things up here, you were also just talking about how Hawaii has a ban of some sort. How was that kind of like implemented? And do you think that's something that can be replicated easily across not only just other states, but other countries as well?
Yeah. The bill had died so many times. Like I was there, I was there testifying like every single time. And because we're trying to also get styrofoam banned here. But so what happens is they did it by island. So a smaller island, Maui, did a cutlery ban, and then Oahu is implementing it. And I think it's supposed to be in effect by 2021 as well. The plastic bag ban was already in effect before I moved here. And then what happened was companies had found like a loophole, like, well, if they make the plastic a certain thickness, it can be considered reusable. And so there was still plastic. And so now there's a charge. So you have to pay for bags if you use them, and they're 15 cents a bag. So I think that depending on the priorities of the government in the area that you live in, it can be implemented. I don't know if I have like full confidence that on a federal level that it would be implemented, but it can be adopted by other countries, and other countries are doing it. Like Germany is amazing with their sustainability priorities, and I think that when countries or counties or states look to their neighbors and see how successful it is, and see they're not sacrificing economics, then people will follow suit. I hope it's in time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Even at the recycling plant that we were actually, Lauren was talking about, like they have some really insane technology that they use for like the sorting. And when we were asking her questions like, oh, where is this stuff kind of coming from? Is it like American made, Canadian, anything like that? She's like, no, like this is literally all coming from Europe, and like Germany, Netherlands are like the two main ones. And like she's just like, they're honestly on a full other level that again, everyone should aspire to kind of get like, but exactly what you said too, like it's not impacting their economy or anything like that. And it really is a total cultural shift when you're there. I mean, I had the opportunity to go to Europe last summer, and I got to go to Netherlands as well. And it really is a total mindset shift where like, if you saw someone kind of throwing something or littering, I think in other developed nations in the West, they would just kind of like, it's not a big deal. Whereas it's not even that they like shun you, but it's also like you'd get some weird looks, and it's like they know you're a tourist, they know you're someone from the US or Canada, like somewhere outside of Europe, and like that isn't normal at all. So it really is interesting to see like all these like cultural dynamics playing a shift here. And I think definitely, the younger generation is going to be a big key to this. And I mean, we have definitely pushed our parents to make a lot of these types of changes. And I think younger kids too, if you get to them, they'll kind of drive their parents to make a lot of these shifts. So definitely interesting times. We'll see where things kind of proceed. But I'm optimistic. I think we have a long road ahead of us, but
we need people like that. We need the optimism, because it can seem overwhelming, but I totally agree with you. Like, as soon as it becomes like socially unacceptable to not care about the environment, and there's a huge culture shift to it just being a priority, then I think it'll be a snowball effect, and we'll see a lot of changes in a short period of time. And I think we're almost there, especially with, I mean, TikTok's just one way that shows that we're almost there.
Awesome. Really appreciate your time having you here on the podcast. Super insightful.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I can't believe we're all Ecuadorians still.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. If you would like to learn more, visit us at www.last20.ca. Until next time, stay sustainable.